when I first walked out there, the black guy was on top. And the only reason I can tell that was because the guy that was on the ground under him at that point, wrestling, was definitely a lighter color.
Bradley Cohen, how significant is that statement?
I think it's pretty significant. I mean, you have someone who actually saw what happened. Now, what the argument it's going to be is what happened prior to that. Who struck who first? Who attacked who first? But in terms of Zimmerman's story, this certainly gives credibility to what he was saying, that Trayvon was on top of him and that he was being assaulted while he was on top of him. But we don't know how that began.
All right, and Jasmine, what's your reaction when you hear that? I mean, is it as damning as it seems it could be?
I mean, I don't think that evidence is really that significant. We've been saying from the very beginning, and the fact still remains, that officers told George Zimmerman not to get out of his car, not to pursue Trayvon. Zimmerman made the decision to get out of his car. He followed Trayvon with a loaded weapon and pursued the teenager throughout the apartment complex. So I think it's very clear who the aggressor in this incident is, and I think that the injuries are very consistent with the evidence. We know we have George Zimmerman with some scratches, and we have Trayvon dead with the use of a gun.
Okay, but we do also have, I mean, those pictures. I mean, George Zimmerman, it was more than scratches. I mean, he had several areas in the back of his head where there's blood pouring off his head and a broken nose.
He certainly did not have any life-threatening injuries. I think most notable, EMT was called out. They told EMT to turn around. He did not go to the emergency room that night. And let's not forget that nobody saw George Zimmerman that night. So no one medically inspected him until the following day. So, you know, the evidence that we have now...
Go ahead, finish your point, and then Bradley, come in.
The evidence that we have now still remains that Zimmerman pursued and shot and killed Trayvon Martin.
Okay, go ahead, Bradley, then I want to get to Stacey.
Sure, Aaron, just because the injuries are not life-threatening doesn't mean that the individual did not feel his life was being threatened at the time he was being beaten. Just because your injuries don't say, oh my God, these injuries look like you could have died from them. If someone is, like he said, was smashing his head against the cement, you'd feel that your life was in danger.
All right, let me, Stacey, play something else we heard today in the discovery, and this is something everybody has been waiting to hear. The first time we've heard the voice of Trayvon Martin's girlfriend. Everyone who's following this case may remember that he was on the phone with her as this whole altercation began. Her identity still hasn't been revealed, but here's her voice, and here's what she said.
So you definitely could tell another voice that was not Trayvon.
Yeah.
And you heard this other voice say what?
Yeah. What are you doing around here?
What are you doing around here? Okay.
And I'll call Trayvon. Trayvon, what's going on? What's going on?
This is you saying that. Okay.
Then I'll call him. He didn't answer.
No answer from Trayvon.
Yeah. Just there, I hear his son like bump. You can hear that Trayvon somebody bump Trayvon. So I can hear the grass.
So Stacey, what do you hear there?
Well, listen, everything we're discussing tonight is extremely significant. We've been waiting to hear if anybody was an ear witness or an eyewitness, and certainly in this discovery that's been disseminated, we're starting to see or feel what actually went on. But without knowing exactly, and because none of these witnesses can tell you who started it, but certainly we know who set the chain of events in motion, and that's what's very important. That Zimmerman was the one that got out of the car and started the chain of events. And certainly we know that the law states if you are the aggressor in all of this, you can't then stand behind the shield and say, I'm standing my ground. Putting that aside, none of us on this panel know all of the evidence. The prosecutor does, and now the defense attorney is getting everything. And at the stand your ground hearing will be very important for this judge to make the decision by a preponderance of the evidence if, in fact, it was more likely than not what Zimmerman said happened. And that's when we're going to know.
Brad, let me